Hello there. I'm Dr. Mike Cosgrave. I'm course coordinator for the master's programs in digital humanities, so you'll be seeing a fair bit of me, particularly during the first semester. I teach several modules, and I want to introduce a couple of them so that you have some idea what's coming down the road. One that I want to talk about is DH6013, which is called Getting Started with Graduate Research. And this is a very practical module. It grew out of a need to make sure that people in the postgrad courses had some understanding of how to do research and to get the basic skills of not just academic research, but research in general. Because it's not just a question of, there are research skills that are fundamental not only to academic research, but to journalism, to business research, all across the spectrum. If you have a problem and you need to find answers and information and organize it in a coherent way and make sense of it towards suggesting solutions, then you need a package of research skills. So we're going to look at what the nature of research is and what the different levels of organization and what the philosophical underpinnings of research are. We'll do that fairly briefly at the start. We're going to talk about ethics. Ethics has become the first thing you have to think about in doing research, whether it's academic research or business research. As we now know, a great deal of private business research sometimes is ethically questionable in the pursuit of profit. And certainly digital humanities, being a humanities discipline, one of our strengths is the ability to think about the ethics of what we're doing in research and to shape our research so that it is ethically just, fair, so the work is done properly, that the subjects are respected, and that the outputs are presented in such a way that's fair. And then we're going to look at a couple of things in terms of from week to week in the cycle of what we do in research, how we plan research, how we actually break a project down into manageable chunks, how we locate sources, not just academic but non-academic, how we evaluate the utility or the integrity of those sources, how we separate the wheat from the chaff and work out which ones are actually useful for our research and which ones are solid, well-founded, good research that we can depend on, which has become even more important now with the huge amount of fake news out there and what has been called by a number of writers the death of expertise, which is a particular problem, especially in the United States, where people now take the view that my opinion is as good as your facts. And clearly, in many cases, it's not. We're going to look at how we read research, how we take research articles apart and annotate them, how we're going to do mind mapping to separate the structure of the arguments out and see what the structure of these arguments are, particularly in academic journal articles that some of you will not have yet had experience of reading. So we're going to look at how those are taken apart. We're going to look at how across a range of sources you then construct what is called a literature review. There's a number of ways to do that. The traditional narrative literature review, the more organized systematic literature review, how you make sure you've found the stuff. That bit in research about standing on the shoulders of giants, right? How do you do that process? How do you work out what they've said, what's important, map it all together, find out where the big issues in the field are, and present that. And then we're going to look at some practical skills for research. We're going to look at how you do surveys. We're going to look at how you prepare for and conduct interviews, individual interviews, focus group interviews, the practicalities of recording, getting them transcribed, how you analyze the text that comes out of that, and how you analyze the data that comes out of surveys. Not everybody will need to do that at this point in time this year, but at some point it's a skill that's useful to have. So we're going to look at a range of practical things like that, and how you put those together. We're going to think perhaps a little bit about writing as well, and the different types of writing, and the different ways in which you can present the outputs. It's not just a dull, dry, footnoted paper nowadays. You need to be able to think about, presenting it on audio or video podcast, presenting it in a PowerPoint presentation. How do you tell the story of your research across a range of different ways? And that relates to another module I teach, which I'll talk about separately. So how this works is it's delivered fully online. Every week there's a number of readings and some discussion questions, which you respond to in the discussion forums. From time to time, some of those weeks, some of the stuff will be readings based on light enough theory in the shallow end of the theory pool. We may get deeper if people are able to swim that far. Some of the work from week to week will be specific practical things. Design a survey. Prepare a set of interview questions, and the readings obviously will build up for that. So you'll accumulate this as a portfolio, and then at the end of the course, you just gather all these weekly things together in one document and submit it. So it builds from week to week. It requires a little bit of organization. You have to be careful not to let things slip too much. And this is where with online learning, particularly time management is important. So I'm going to be paying attention to that and keeping an eye on people. My grading scheme is fairly flexible, but I give, for the work you do in the first 4 weeks, 10%. So that's light enough. We're getting warmed up. In the middle 4 weeks, 20%. Stuff is slightly harder. The intellect marking payback is more. In the last 4 weeks, 30% for the work you do in the last 4 weeks. So it ramps up as you get into it. And that leaves me with 40% for the overall portfolio at the end, your final reflection on what you learned. It gives me some space to make an actual qualified judgment rather than just adding up the marks and going, yeah, this plus this, that's it. So thought does go into how I give that final 40% to round off the whole thing. It's not, it's a very practical course. It's therefore there's philosophical background to it, and you understand the sort of theoretical location of the tasks you're doing. But a lot of it is very practical, and it is. Not everybody's going to be good at every part of it. Some people are good at interviews. Some people are good at surveys. Fine. We recognize that. So there's a certain amount of flexibility in how I grade it at the end to recognize people's particular strengths or weaknesses. Basically, the sort of underlying thing is that you have a goal. Try out these various different methods. Learn what you're good at. Learn what you don't like. People have different approaches to research. They have different strengths and weaknesses. This course will help you to discover those. And if you can take away from it that there are certain things that you're not good at, then that is useful learning. It is, I won't say it's a course that's impossible to fail, but it's very hard to fail if you do the work. And the game here, the goal is not to catch people out and fail them. The goal is to give people some useful skills and an understanding of their skills and an understanding of where they need to grow and develop in terms of improving their research ability. So it's meant to be a useful course in that way, which is perhaps different to maybe the traditional approach to teaching and learning that you've gone through in the past. So I hope it'll be fun. I hope you'll enjoy it, and I look forward to seeing you.